He almost walked past it. That is the truth of it. He had walked this trail dozens of times, and the fallen tree had always been there, collapsed across the forest floor, bark peeling, wood beneath it soft and dark with rot. He had always registered it the way he registered something that is finished, something that used to be something and wasn't anymore. Then one morning he stopped. He looked closer, and what he saw changed the way he understood the word ending. The tree was not finished. It had fallen. That part was true. Whatever storm or age or slow interior failing had brought it down, that had happened, and it was not coming back upright. But finished was the wrong word entirely for what was happening on the forest floor where it lay. Moss had claimed the bark. Weeds had pushed up through the rot, and there, growing directly out of the decaying wood itself, roots pressed into the softened fibers, what used to be a living trunk, a seedling, small, green, completely unhurried about the unusual circumstances of its beginning. The fallen tree has become its soil. Its death would become someone else's beginning. He stood over it and tried to take that in. The particular kind of awe that arises not from something grand and obvious, but from something small and quietly, extraordinarily happening right at his feet without any announcement at all. The wood fibers that had once carried water up toward the sky were now carrying something else entirely. Nutrients, energy, slow patient chemistry of transformation up into the roots of a plant that never knew what was going to grow out of it. It didn't need to know, it was already growing. Every few feet something new was using it. Moss here, a cluster of ferns there. Further along, where the rot was deepest, the wood had begun turning almost completely to earth. The growth was densest, as though the tree, it had given the most of itself away. He thought about that. The more it dissolved, the more it gave. The farther it went from what it had been, the more useful it had became to everything around it. Its beginning was not a single moment, but a long, slow opening. Decades of giving that would have begun the moment it stopped being able to take anything for itself. He never thought about a fallen tree this way before. He was thinking about it now. He noticed, walking, that he was not simply looking at the forest. He was inside it. The ground gave off to its own smell here. Damp bark, old leaves, a kind of decay that no speaker, no screen has ever learned to send through a wire. Sound came from every direction at once. Not left, not right, not two channels balanced on a pair of headphones. All around him, the way it's always been before anyone built a device to imitate it. He could see the wind before he felt it, a shiver moving through the leaves overhead, arriving at his skin a half second later. Nothing here was standing still. Even the boulder, when he found it, was not really still, only slow. A screen gives you one flat rectangle to look at. A forest gave him no edges at all. Far along the trail he found the boulder. Large, old sandstone, going gray at the surface. Lichen spreading across it in a slow, irregular patches. And growing out of it, not beside it, not near it, but directly out of the stone itself, two trees, living, substantial, their trunks rising from the boulder surface as though the rock had always intended to become a forest floor and had simply been waiting for the right moment to begin. He stood in front of it and felt something he could only call awe. Not the polite kind, the kind that stops your feet and holds you there longer than you plan to stand in any one place. He looked at the roots. They had not gone down through the stone. Stone doesn't yield that way. They had gone across it, long, exposed root fingers stretching flat across the boulder surface, moving laterally, finding every crack and crevice and shallow deposit of accumulated soil, reaching outward, downward along the face of the rock until they find what they're looking for, earth, real earth, at the base of the boulder where stone finally meet ground. He traced them with his eyes from trunk to earth and back again. How long had that taken? How many seasons of slow, patient reaching before the roots found what they needed? How many years growing on stone before the stone yielded enough to let something live on it? He didn't know, he couldn't know. But the roots had known something he hadn't, that the earth was there at the base of the stone, reachable if you're willing to grow across the surface of something that offered almost nothing in order to get the thing that offered everything. The tree hadn't asked whether it was possible. It had simply grown towards what it needed. He reached out and put his hand against it. The stone was cold, the root beside it warmer, alive. He hadn't expected to be able to feel a difference so plainly, but he could. He heard it before he saw it, that particular percussion, rapid, purposeful, completely indifferent to whether anyone was listening, coming from somewhere above, ahead of him on the trail. He moved carefully towards it and found the woodpecker working the side of a tree with the focused intensity of something that knows exactly what it is doing and has no interest in being interrupted. He watched. The bird drilled, pulled back, tilted its head, drilled again, each hole a small act of purpose, finding the insect beneath the bark, taking what it needed, moving on. It didn't linger, it didn't admire its work, it simply did what it was built to do, and then flew to the next tree and did it again. He watched until it was gone. He found the tree the woodpecker was working on for what must have been a long time. A large living tree still standing, still leafed out, still doing everything a tree does, covered with the lower trunk upwards in holes. Dozens of them, maybe more, each one the record of a meal taken, an insect extracted, a woodpecker moving through its day without any knowledge of what it was leaving behind. What it was leaving behind was shelter. Each hole, a potential home for something smaller than a woodpecker that needed exactly the size of darkness to feel safe in. The bird had taken. Something else would receive. The transaction was already complete, even though neither party had ever been in the same place at the same time to complete it. He put his hand against the bark beside one of the holes. The tree was warm from morning sun. It was still alive, still giving, covered in the evidence of everything that had already taken from it, and moved on without a word of acknowledgement. It didn't seem to mind. He walked back slowly. The trail was full of them, fallen trunks at every stage of the process, from the recently collapsed, still showing their bark, to nearly vanished. Barely a raised line in the forest floor, more earth now than wood. The transformation so complete, you can almost miss that something large that once stood there, all of it moving in the same direction, all of it giving. He noticed too that the walking itself had done something to him. His mind has loosened somewhere around the second mile, and the way it always did, the way it never quite did sitting still. Walking made room. It let a thought wander until it found something worth wandering toward. He was fairly sure that was not an accident. He was fairly sure it was not something that could happen from a chair in front of a glowing rectangle, no matter how well-lit picture. He thought about the roots stretching across the border. He thought about the seedling growing out of rock. He thought about the woodpecker drilling holes that became homes for things that it never knew existed. And then he thought about why he was making this video at all. It was not for himself. He had already had his morning. Whatever he found here, he had already kept. The smell of the ground, the sun coming at him from every direction, the wind arriving on his skin a half second after he saw it move through the trees. That part was his already, regardless of what happened to the footy. What worried him was simpler, but harder to say without sounding like he was scolding someone. He worried that fewer people were finding mornings like this one. That a screen, bright, flat, endlessly available, had quietly become the place people went looking for the feeling this forest had just given to him for free. The screen could not do it, not really. It could show a tree. It could not show a man the difference between the temperature of the stone and the temperature of a living root beside it. It could not send the smell of wet bark through a speaker. It could not surround anyone. Nature was not a metaphor he was building for a video. It was a real thing, still there, still giving, the way a falling tree was still giving long after it stopped being able to stand. He was afraid of a world where fewer people ever find that out for themselves, where the forest floor becomes something people only remember secondhand, through someone else's video, instead of under their own boots. He found another one on his way out. He wasn't looking for it. He was already leaving, already thinking about the drive home, already done for the morning. And there it was anyway, a little off the trail, weeds standing up from rotted wood, moss banked along the edges like soil someone had packed in on purpose. From the right angle, it looked almost like a window planter, something a person might have built and tended, except no one had. It had built itself out of nothing but time and decay and whatever seed happened to land there. He photographed it the way you'd photograph something you didn't want to forget. That evening he painted it, not from memory, from what the photograph had already shown him, more clearly and in some ways than his own eyes had caught it standing there on the trail. He looked at the two side by side for a while. The photograph, the painting, the trunk itself still out there on the trail, unaware that it had been copied twice over by a man who couldn't let it go. It had never once tried to be beautiful. It had only rotted patiently and let something grow. He made the video anyway, not to be seen, not to be praised. The tree never asked if anyone was watching before it gave what it had. That was reason enough. That tree is life, not a metaphor, not a comfort, a fact observed on a trail in North Park on an ordinary morning by a man who almost walked past it. Twice, if you count the one he found on his way out the door. He was glad that he stopped both times.